think first was Will. If you want to go ahead and start off with just a quick introduction on yourself while you're running, and what are some of the main issues that you want to address if you get elected?
Absolutely. How's the sound here?
A little low.
Okay, let me see if I can move something around. How about now?
A little better?
Better, okay. Well, my name is Will Moore. I am running for San Diego City Council in District 1, which if you can see my screen, I'm right up here with the map in the background. It's the Carmel Valley, Sereno Valley, University City, and La Jolla area, as those of you in the cannabis industry know as Sereno Valley. And because that's where we put all of our dispensaries. I am a small business lawyer. Some of the small business that I have advised have been dispensaries and nonprofits. I was the attorney that set up the Cannabis Education Project and Community Engagement Resources, as well as a couple of other local industry organizations here in San Diego and throughout California. I represented the Association of Cannabis Professionals during the San Diego District Attorney's persecution of Jess McElfresh. And I remember Donald tried to pay me and I told him no, because I was mad, and that's why I did it. So I am I've long been interested in the industry and helping move the industry along, because I think cannabis prohibition was wrongheaded and racist, and just there's no reason this ever should have been illegal in the first place. I am running in a seat that is securely and solidly pro-cannabis. Pop 64 won in all but one precinct in the entire district of District 1. So I have confidence in my community as being in support. I have no questions about, the old way of thinking being something I need to be afraid of among my constituents. I've run the numbers, I see, and when a politician tells you they personally believe something and that they know that their constituents also believe it, you can have a lot more confidence in that person. I'm running against an older guy from Bird Rock who, when he came to the Blue Dreams Dens, for some reason name-checked how he recently had a conversation with Scott Chipman, which didn't make any sense to me, but I thought it summed up our competition here pretty well. You don't know what you're going to get if you go the other way, and I am attuned to be an advocate for the industry. I've got a lot of supporters in the industry, and my primary advisor on this stuff is Jess. So she's always been very helpful whenever I needed to know anything about the cannabis industry. As far as the race is concerned, we won half the precincts in the district in the primary. We did very well. We've probably going to come out with some numbers today to show fundraising above the level of my opponent. Assembled a very large and broad coalition, left to right, Chamber of Commerce, Lorena Gonzalez, the whole gamut. Not a lot of people do that, and we've assembled that coalition because I've been working in this community for such a long time, and my attitude is always one of mediation, to try to move things forward with everybody, as many people as possible on the team, so that our reforms and changes that we make to the way we do things in San Diego are stable. That said, I'm not a everybody has to agree guy. I'm willing to say, if you're not gonna be part of the deal, then don't be part of the deal. The folks, we're not gonna try to make every Scott Chipman of the world happy as we move ourselves into an era where prohibition is a thing of the past. So I am an aggressive leader. I bring people along, I bring people together, and I get things done. I am running because I've seen San Diego not provide leadership on our big issues for many years. And what I've seen is folks who join the city council sometimes so they can serve on a 31st committee as a career capstone. And that's not what I'm about. I can't imagine anything worse than spending 8 years of my 40s and 50s on that panel, on that dais, without knowing what I was trying to accomplish. Trying to address our climate crisis, trying to address our housing crisis, and trying to create good paying jobs where our kids and our working folks here in San Diego can afford to actually live here. That's been my priority for many years. I've been active in the community, co-founder of the San Diego Leadership Alliance, member of the Urban League Young Professionals Board, member of my Rotary Club, active in the community for the last 12 years, on the board of that, sergeant at arms, the whole 9 yards. And I'm raising a son here in Carmel Valley where he goes to Torrey Pines High School. So active in the community, longtime activist, longtime business attorney. I did not spring up here full grown. I came from a very long path, grew up as a poor kid in Macon, Georgia, got a scholarship to college at Georgia Tech, tried to give back my entire life, was a Peace Corps volunteer in Senegal, West Africa, and went to law school at Columbia Law. So we've done well, but we have an obligation not to pull up that ladder behind us, and that's what animates me. San Diego can be a new and better city and needs to provide leadership and needs to seize that opportunity that we have in the 2020s, and I intend to do that.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, thank you so much. All right, Kelvin, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your race while you're running, some of your top issues, and then we'll go ahead and jump into the conversation about cannabis.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kelvin Barrios. I'm a candidate for San Diego City Council District 9. For those of you that may not know where District 9 is, it's the Mid-City area of San Diego. That's City Heights, Mount Hope, Southcrest, Mount View, all the way to SDSU, so the college area, and Rolando. It's in Kensington and Talmadge as well. So that's District 9. Anyone that was looking at businesses, the cannabis industry and everything, it's really along Home Avenue. I think it's where we're getting a lot of our businesses because of the type of zoning that's there and the sensitive receptors, the location of where they're at. I used to be a policy advisor with Council President Georgette Gomez. I was a campaign staffer for her, and then worked as a community rep and a transportation, infrastructure, and cannabis policy advisor. I've served on my community planning board. I've been a vice president of my town council. I've been active in the Democratic Party. I was a vice chair of the Democratic Party. So I have a lot of rounded experience that led me to running for this position. Currently, I'm the director of community outreach for Laborers Local 89 Construction Trades Union, and I've been working on policies on advocating for worker rights, safety enhancement requirements, and ensuring that we're hiring locally here in San Diego. So it's for me, what's really important is issues of equity. District 9 is traditionally a underserved district, especially the southern points of District 9. So that's really the foundation for me being a candidate. I grew up here. My family's been here for over 30 years. We immigrated here. My parents immigrated here from Central America in Guatemala. They, started off with nothing, literally nothing. They didn't know English and worked their way up. But our family has met a lot of challenges that city government can do more to improve the quality of life for residents. We've faced, at times, the risk of being evicted from our homes, though our landlords were, not trying to provide basic needs that they needed to. So like a lot of tenant issues, which are still going on now in District 9. I grew up on public transit. I didn't have a car until I was 19. I used to work at a Mervyn's and Macy's between Fashion Valley and the college area. And that would take me like an hour and a half on transit. So I know a lot of the needs that our working class families face in District 9 and some of the challenges that they face with housing insecurity, economic opportunities they're lacking, and then even having to, hit language barriers with the city of San Diego. So I'm running on trying to bring, fighting for neighborhood services to preserve what we have and then expand even more, but also taking into consideration the diversity in the district that I'm running for. In City Heights alone, there's over 60 different languages spoken. So that's actually one of the most diverse. It is, I believe, the most diverse zip code in California, if not the second. As far as like ethnic makeup, different languages, dialects, the density of it. We have a huge refugee population from East Africa. And a lot of different dialects there spoken as well. So the issues are very diverse. But for any of you that know Kensington and Talmadge, that's a more affluent area. They're a little bit better off. The issues might be a little bit different there. But I do see things that we have a nexus and we interact at different points, especially policy objectives. So funding for the city, like anyone that's running right now knows that COVID-19 has really affected us, and how much funding we're going to have for allocating these type of services. So that is something that I'm looking at on what we can do better. The cannabis industry is a point of potential funding that can be increased if we tweak the regulations. I think I'm one of the more familiar candidates with our regs because I've helped write them. I was key in the distribution and manufacturing regulations that came to council a couple years ago. It was a huge fight for us to even get a citywide cap instead of a district cap.
So let's just jump into that, because I think that's the perfect transition into, I guess, my first question here is on the financial deficits that the city's facing. And you were instrumental in that vote in 2017. So kind of to both you, the country right now is, there's a lot of jurisdictions facing economic deficits, and then we're also seeing a big social justice and racial justice push as well. So in my mind, I don't know of any lower hanging fruit that can deal with both of those than cannabis policy and social equity issues. So, putting together a social equity program. So, I guess, do you have any thoughts on that? I know we discussed this back in 2017, Kelvin, when we worked on that ordinance. I guess, do you think things have changed and we have more of an opportunity to do that? And kind of to both of you, what type of additional policy changes would you make if elected that can deal with both economic recovery and social justice?
I think revolving around the industry itself, it was a struggle to even get the ordinance we have in place right now passed. And at that time, I was working on a social equity piece with a lot of different advocates around that, and looking what other cities were doing and seeing what worked, what didn't work, and how can we allow regular folks to really, get into this industry. Because right now, a lot of the property owners, or a lot of those that have locations have wealth, right? Like they have an investment, they are able to put in millions of dollars up front. So we're really, and they may not even be from San Diego, right? Like they might be out of town, they might be from other counties. So our local population, our local folks aren't benefiting. So I think it is something that we can revisit through the entire industry. So like the retail side, manufacturing, production side of this ordinance, especially now that we will probably have some data to look back on seeing where our successes are, where we failed. I don't want to have a natural monopoly of the industry. That's not something that we wanted. It's my advocacy has always been that we should allow the market to regulate itself as far as like the quantity that's needed versus adding a cap, because there was no science to that cap. It's literally, where it's like, should it be 50? Should it be 60? Let's do 40, 30. Like it was just a random number being thrown out there that has no science behind it. And now we've hit that on most, I think right now we're pretty at the limit because of the sensitive receptors. And I think that's an issue. So you were saying of how can we improve? I think it's revisiting our ordinances and I would rather us go to the state requirements versus like the additional requirements we have as a city, because we haven't seen any negative effects from the industry, at least not from the legal side of the industry. And then even, I think that alone does a lot of change and it increases the amount of funding that the city can get from the industry.
Yeah, exactly. Will, you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think that there are two aspects of that: the taxation and the equity. And what I want to speak to on the taxation side is there is always a impulse to, say, oh, the marijuana can be taxed more, but it's already 30 or 45% of the cost of the product, and that, as we see, drives folks into the black market once economic times get tough and are drags on the maybe we can do something with that, but we gotta get rid of the other drags and costs in the system where it's hard to cite, it's hard to zone, it's hard to just get the $30,000 that it takes to get through the process. Now, I've been a small business lawyer for the past 17 years, and I've seen how the gradual monopolization of every industry has just decimated small businesses across the board, resulted in lower wages for workers and hollowed out the middle class. And the cannabis industry faces those same risks, and we see it happening all the time, aided by restrictive zoning and Byzantine regulations and caps on facilities. And I would address that by lifting the arbitrary cap of only 40 sites for production facilities and reevaluating overbroad categories of sensitive uses and assisting people from those communities that have been affected by prohibition to most effectively participate in the industry. Now, that would include an equity program. Any changes we make need to recognize that the prohibition that was completely arbitrary wasn't for no reason. It was just arbitrary. It was definitely a racially based system, and it was based on that racial fear and stoking that racial fear. And we have used our drug laws to incarcerate Black people, basically, for a very long time. And now that we have a legalization regime, we should recognize that that's one way that we can make some of those inequities right. Some have advocated setting aside licenses for specific communities and reducing fees. I think that's fine, that's good, but it doesn't help with the real problem that non-corporate entrants face, which is funding. So setting rights and licenses aside for people, or even reducing application fees by $30,000, is not enough to make much difference in the multi-million-dollar process of opening a dispensary. Now, the city of Los Angeles experimenting with low-interest loans from city funds, and San Francisco has a few years ago required wealthier applicants for new sites to pay for a site for an equity applicant as they define. I think that that's going to be a little tough in COVID times because we don't have those resources to do those low interest loans, but we need to be looking out as in this very dynamic economic situation we were in for ways to make equity not only theoretically, but actually effective. So I think that sums up my feelings.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's exciting about these county ordinances. They're going to be looking to address the social equity piece. And, I think you're right. What some of the issues we've seen with some of the other programs in the state not working is the funding aspect of it. So, we're going to have to get creative on how to provide the funding, but it's doable. We're bringing in a good amount of money with, Measure N or the cannabis business tax. So, we'll see what we can do there. But we got to get some good people elected in order to do that. Another one is on-site consumption. Got to bring it up. It's what's a big issue there. I don't know if you were listening on the Oceanside aspect, but there's a couple of different ways to do that. Just wanted to get your thoughts on on-site consumption, whether that be just at the current dispensaries type of thing, or if it's another license type like a lounge or like a restaurant or something like that. Any thoughts on what we could do with on-site consumption?
Well, I think when you start talking about on-site consumption, other cities in the United States have actually started to do these. We have San Francisco and West Hollywood have done consumption lounges, and it doesn't get wild west. It doesn't get crazy. And again, there's no reason this stuff should have been illegal in the first place. So,
well, if you speak a little louder, it's a little quiet.
Okay. I'll just hold the mic. Can you hear me? Is this better?
That's much better, yes.
Okay. So there's no particular reason this stuff should have been illegal in the first place. And, you can go to a bar literally anywhere.
Yes.
Now, are we there yet where people understand that? I'm not sure we've gotten all that way, but we're not very far from it. So what I think we need to do is I think it should be start out at the dispensaries. That'll get people understanding that these are places that it's okay, that there's not going to be really anything going on there. There's substantially less hooting and hollering and crime and people punching each other in the face than you're going to get at a regular bar. That's not how this substance works. And so I would say we would start with site consumption at the dispensaries, and then maybe a couple of years later, after people have gotten the point that that's not going to create a problem in the neighborhoods, we'll go out into more places. One of the problems we face with dispensaries is that our sensitive uses give us very, very few places we can site those dispensaries. Like here in District 1, they're basically all on Roselle Street way back at the back of Carmel Valley. And I think we would face the same problem with consumption lounges. So strategically, I would do those one at a time with the goal that eventually everybody will see what's going on, and it'll get out into the rest of the community. We'll be able to do just regular consumption lounges.
Kelvin, anything there? Anything to add? Another one is at events, right? So, I mean, I don't know if that was touched upon. I don't know where Kelvin went, but essentially having these at events. So, if like a beer garden, you'd also have kind of a cannabis garden, right, where you could consume in a safe place, that has ventilation and everything that's needed. Just want to put that out there as well. Yeah, Kelvin, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think just knowing from the dance, we have to do every time we bring up these ordinances through the city process.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I get on some different districts, right? And just some council members may have a little more trouble on. And I'm not saying like District 1 or District 3 or 9, but we know there's some council members on the council that will be there that may push back. I think it'll be easier to bring up an ordinance together, just two different things at the same time. Like if for on-site consumption for existing locations, make it an easier process, just because they already have a business model going. Maybe it's a lower process permit type. Maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be like an additional. I don't know if the city is able to just amend a CUP, to include it instead of giving them another CUP and going through that parallel process. And then for the restaurants or lounge type, just simultaneously bring that ordinance up, and then just have it come up for review afterwards, right? Like, so if we do have some issues that we need to tweak, we can do that in the future. But just knowing that on a policy standpoint, if we try to phasing things in, it takes forever, and the willpower may not be there. Like we may lose a lot of I think, or at least in my understanding, because I've been after we got through the production ordinance at the city, we got a lot of pushback from some groups in District 9, and no matter what, those groups will always be against anything that has to deal with cannabis. There's just no way of going around that. So it's just, I think, easier for even council members to just get something through, together, a package, and then that way it's always, I think, a minority that is vocal against. In District 9, 67% of folks voted to legalize cannabis. So I understand that as well.
Okay, great.
First,
all right, we're right.
I didn't answer the event question.
Let's say we're right at noon right now, so just want to see if anybody has any questions before we kind of get going. But do you have anything to add on that, Will?
Yeah, well, first of all, Kelvin, I'm glad to hear you say what you just said, which was there are some folks that are just always going to be against you. And, I've been making deals for a long time with people who don't get along very well. And when you know that there's just nothing happening, you go and work with the people you can work with. And trying to appease someone who is unappeasable just gets you worse regulations and less stuff done. So hearing you say that makes me think we're going to have a really good time. But as far as events go, I think events, as I mentioned before, having the on-site at the dispensaries, I think events are another way to drive that point home where people see that there's consumption on site and see that there's not trouble arising from it at events where people get along. It's nice. There's a parade. We've already got things that happen at Pride that I've actually been to y'all's at Pride, which is a great deal. And that allows us to expand and people to see that something works. And all of that middle ground of folks who are skeptical get to see that example of something being effective, and that moves the process along much further. But I agree with Kelvin that you do as much as you can, as fast as you can, and then that creates the next step. 4 years, 8 years is a very short amount of time to get a major set of changes going on in the city, and this is one of a big stack of things we need to change in San Diego, so we need to be as aggressive as possible. So we only have to do something maybe twice instead of 6 times. So that incrementalism, I don't think is what would meet the moment.
Fair enough. Yeah, and I completely agree there. Okay, we're past noon right now, so I want to be sensitive to everybody's time. Thank you so much for joining us and for participating in this conversation. We'll go ahead and post the videos up on our website and send on some links to your guys' websites. So thank you very much. Any last words? I don't know if we have any questions. So any last things before we get going?
Just appreciate everybody's help here. I would ask that you go. We definitely need resources. Kelvin and I both are running tight campaigns against very strong opponents, and so we need all the help we can get. So my website is moreforsandiego.com. There is a little button there that's at moreforsandiego.com/donate. And I would love to have your financial support because that helps us get the message out to voters and talk to folks. And this is a tough time for fundraising. And that's what we do up until about a month before ballots go out, is we try to get the resources into the campaign so we can deploy them when it's time to convince voters. And we need your help. The maximum donation is $600. Would love to have as much of that as you can spare to give. Have already gotten some good support from throughout the industry, including Mr. Young. And would love to have yours as well. Thank you very much.
You think, Kelvin?
Yeah, I agree. Everyone does their fundraising pitch, but also feel free to reach out to me. I always like hearing from folks in different perspectives, especially on the cannabis industry. I know we didn't get into the weeds of it, but I understand it's a lot different between the activists. Those are actually the business owners, even the labor aspect of it. So feel free to reach out to me. My email is kelvin@kelvinbarrios.com, or you want to learn more about me, kelvinbarrios.com. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And just one last thing for me. I mean, it's great to have you both running at the moment because I've worked on cannabis issues with both of y'all for a few years now. So it's pretty cool that both of you are running at the same time. So we definitely need to do everything that we can to get you both elected so we can actually come up with a very comprehensive and progressive cannabis ordinance in San Diego. So thank you both very much. All participants, their information is in the chat. Please go there to learn more. All right, so thank you both very much. Really appreciate it.